Tuesday afternoon to you. We are greeting you from the beautiful state of Indiana, and glad that you're able to tune in today. Again, this was pre-recorded, but hopefully you're tuning in at 1 o'clock to listen to it as it posts to the site. So just glad you can join with us. Let me pray, and then we will get started with our reading. So God, we thank you for the day, and just thank you for the chance once again during this midweek to gather together to continue our reading of Pilgrim's Progress. We thank you for the encouragement that this book is, and just for the truth that it contains that points us back to your word and gives us insight on our spiritual life and our spiritual journey towards you. So we commit this time to you, and we just pray that as we read together and share together, that you'd be glorified, and that we would be encouraged. We pray this in your name. Amen. To kind of recap just briefly before Kelly starts reading. Last time, in chapter 7, we saw Christian and Hopeful on their journey and walking along a stream, but as they went, it got a little bit harder, and they found a little sidetrack that went along the stream and got themselves off course, realized that they were mistaken, began to experience all kinds of difficulties and hardships, began to retrace their steps on the way back, but couldn't get there before nightfall, ended up falling asleep, and in the morning being discovered by a giant and captured and taken to the castle of Doubting. And last we saw them, Christian remembered he had the key and they were able to free themselves and return on the way. So that's where we're picking up as chapter 8 picks up on their way to the Delectable Mountains. Without any further ado, take it away.
Christian and Hopeful finally came to the Delectable Mountains and went up to view the wonderful land. There were orchards and vineyards and gardens everywhere, and such breathtaking scenery in their eyes had never beheld. They drank and washed themselves at one of the fountains and ate freely of the fruit along the way. On the mountains were shepherds feeding their flocks near the highway. They went to one of the shepherds and asked, "Who owns these mountains, and whose sheep are these?" Shepherd: "These mountains are Emmanuel's land. They are within sight of his city, and the sheep are also his."
Christian: "Is this the way to the celestial city?"
"Yes, sir. You are on the right road."
"How far is it to the city gate?"
"Oh, too far for any except for the faithful."
"Is the way safe or fraught with dangers?"
"Oh, it is safe for those who are true, but the transgressors shall fall there within."
"Is there shelter in this place for pilgrims?"
"Yes, plenty, for our Lord has given us the charge, 'Be not forgetful to entertain strangers.' Therefore, you will be welcomed everywhere." Then the shepherd asked them this question: "Where are you from? How did you come into the way? By what means have you preserved so far?" And they added,
"Very few who set out for the celestial city are ever seen on these mountains."
When they heard the answers of these disciples, the shepherds were convinced that they were true pilgrims and gave them a warm reception, asking them to stay a while and to get acquainted with the mountain people. The shepherds said,
"Do it for our pleasure and your strength,"
which the pilgrims agreed to do. The names of the shepherds were Knowledge, Experience, Watchful, and Sincerity. They invited the pilgrims into their tents and gave them the best they had. Christian and Hopeful enjoyed the fellowship with the shepherds' families and the good things that they had to eat. They took supper with the Watchfuls, and after supper, neighbors came in to meet them and to hear of their travels. They sat talking until a late hour, then went to bed. Christian dreamed of his wife and boys and thought he saw them in the pilgrimage with a strong guide. They awoke next morning feeling good. The sun was shining across the mountains and breakfast was waiting. After breakfast, the other shepherds came to take them on a tour. As they were walking along a path enjoying the magnificent scenery, they came to the brink of Error Hill, and Knowledge told them to look down. At the bottom of the precipice were broken bodies and bones of those who had ventured too close to the edge and had fallen over. "What does this mean?" asked Christian. Knowledge: "You have heard of the people who lost their faith by listening to the false teachings of Hymenaeus and Philetus on the resurrection. Well, there they are. they have remained unburied as an object lesson to others who would climb too high and fail to heed warnings of danger. Then they led them to the top of another mountain named Caution Peak, gave them field glasses, and told them to look far away in the direction whence they had come. They saw what had happened to be a number of blind men stumbling among the tombs, unable to find their way out.
What does that indicate?
Before you came to the foothills of these mountains, did you see a stile that led into a meadow on the left-hand side of the road?
Yes.
Knowledge. From the stile, there is a path that leads directly to the Doubting Castle, which is kept by Giant Despair. These men you saw among the tombs came on pilgrimages until they got to that stile. And because the road was rough at that point, they decided to go out into the road into the meadow. There they were taken by Giant Despair and thrown into the Doubting Castle, where they were kept for a time shut in the dungeon. Then the giant put out their eyes and led them out among the tombs, where he left them to wonder. That's the saying of the wise men might be fulfilled. The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. Christian and Hopeful looked at each other with tearful eyes, but said nothing. Then they went down into a canyon to a door to the side of the hill. When the shepherd opened the door, they saw that the cave was very dark inside and filled with smoke, and they smelled an odor like burning sulfur. They also heard a roaring sound like fire and cries of persons in torment.
What is this?
This is by way to hell, a route taken by the hypocrites like Esau, who sold his birthright, Judas, who sold his master, Alexander, who blasphemed the gospel, and Ananias and Sapphira, who lied to and dissembled.
Hopeful. I suppose all these were clothed as pilgrims?
Yes, and they continued in the way a long time, too.
How far did these pretenders get on the way to glory?
Some farther and some not so far as these mountains. Then Christian and Hopeful agreed.
We need to pray for a great strength.
Yes, and you will need all that you can get. By this time, the pilgrims had a desire to resume their journey, so they all walked together to the end of the mountain. Here they came to the top of a high peak called Clear. Let us show you now the gate to the celestial city. You may be able to see it through this glass. The name of the glass was Eye of Faith. Look far away yonder to the east, the way your road leads. The pilgrims, looking through the glass, saw something like a gleaming gate on the distant horizons. But they were still trembling slightly from what they had seen in the cave, and they could not hold the glass steady enough to get a good view. As Christian and Hopeful were leaving, one of the shepherds gave them a sketch of the way. Another said, "Beware of the deceiver." A third said, "Be sure you do not sleep on the enchanted ground." And the fourth bid them Godspeed. Then they went on their way, rejoicing.
And that concludes chapter 8. We'll be back shortly with chapter 9. But pray that you